The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hello, Andy.
You're right.
I'm jaunty right now. Yeah, I'm jaunty.
Well, you know, we're doing another horror school, so I mean,
Is that what's happening?
that's what's happening.
I told Andy, guys, hey, we've got two different shows we want to record. Just start one of them. I've got things to say about both, and it's actually I might just talk about the other movie and pretend I'm talking about horror school. Whatever.
Nice.
Whatever.
I like it. Whatever, dude. The world is your oyster. It's your world.
Thank you for saying that.
I'm just living in it.
Oh, nice.
You know, I mean, I've made myself a good home in your world, but it's your world. So for those new to the podcast, and if you are, what the hell took you so long?
Really?
Honestly, for those new to the podcast, I am a horror fan of long standing, and Phil is
I am not.
Not. He is not, and. Phil recognized this lack of not so much interest, but just knowledge of horror movies as a how do you say a defective character.
I like to think of it as a gap in my transcript.
I like to think of it as a defective character, but yeah, you know, I mean,
Andy?
Yes.
No, that's fine. Say however you feel, whatever you need to feel, man.
Potato. And
it's all just different kinds of hate.
I feel like I might be feeling jaunty too. Anyway, so he came to me and he was like, let's like, I want you to give me assignments, like before I can decide, am I a horror fan or am I not, or, you know, I want to know as much about it as possible. And so we certainly, I mean, there's no way to watch every horror movie. There's no way to watch every important horror movie. There's probably a way to watch every good horror movie because there aren't that many out there. But, and yes, I do mean that there are some important movies in the horror genre that aren't any good.
I don't know. I feel like you're a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Like, you're a little bit off in the sense that, like, you felt like I was like, gosh, like, I want to see if I like horror movies. No, it was not that at all. It literally was like, I need to find, I'm embarrassed that I haven't seen movies as a movie fan that I need to see. So I'm going to see them either way. But I don't want, I needed someone to coerce me. And it was like me convincing you to coerce me because unless you assign me something, I'm never going to do it. And as we've seen, based on how long it takes between movies, like you, Andy, you're going to give me an assignment at the end of this thing, and we might do another horror school 6 months from now. Because I'm
right.
like, oh gosh, I got to watch another horror movie.
That's right.
But it also came about, I want you to remember, it came about from me sort of being drawn towards some horror movies. Like there are times.
That's true.
When I'm like for some reason, you know, I was like, I need to see the new Evil Dead movie. Like that when it came out back in the day, I was like, I kind of need to do this.
Yeah.
And so there are things like that.
It's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
Who knows? Who knows? What evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow.
The shadow knows. Lamont Cranston. Yes. So we've been through many, most, maybe all of the shall we say, important franchises. At least those that have had worthwhile entries since the 1950s. And so, you know, this will continue after this, but this is, you know, I realized, Phil, that I hadn't given you just a monster movie, right? And I don't mean like one of the big name, like Frankenstein. I mean just like there's a monster, you know, and it's not.
Oh wow, yeah.
You know, and you know, if I had been thinking, I might have given you the early Steve McQueen movie, The Blob. Perhaps that will be a future
That's a thing.
Installment, because that is more fun than a barrel of monkeys, while not being very good.
Well, there's that.
Has the greatest end title card, I think, in movie history. That's a lie.
Oh, really?
That's a lie, but it's a lot of fun because it's so totally like 50s paranoia America. I love it. Yes. But so, and I I feel a lot of pressure with these, Phil, because even when it's a movie that I've told you this is not going to be a good movie and you're not going to enjoy it, I still feel responsible because even if you coerced me to begin with, and you did, I had forgotten that part, but you're absolutely right. I feel responsible for these are 2 hours roughly of your life you're never getting back, and
Andy, let me as your friend, let me just say,
oh boy,
you should feel that way. Okay. That's exactly right. You know why? Because I have a life. I have a wife and children, and every time I see a movie that's no good, like, I don't know.
Every time you see a movie that's no good, you miss like your son's first words.
Something, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, literally, right. My children are like, "Look at me," and I'm like, "I got no time for you guys. I'm trying to watch this movie that Andy assigned me."
Jerk Uncle Andy has given me something to do.
Yeah. So listen, if that's, I guess I'm just saying you should feel bad.
Well, this time I don't.
Okay.
Even if you, and I don't know what you thought of the movie. But so okay. This is stunningly. I've taken too many words to say something. I hope you're sitting down, America. So I wanted to give you a monster movie, but I didn't want to give you. I wanted it to be special in some way, and there was this movie that came out. I don't remember when it came out. 2006, 2005, somewhere around mid 2000s. I was in New York, and I can remember when I saw it. I can remember who I saw it with. Friend of the podcast, Michael Burke, and I went to see it downtown in New York, and it is a Korean monster movie. And I liked it because for two reasons. One, it was a legitimately weird monster. Like so many. I mean, I feel like I would get hate mail from people. I'll get hate mail once I say this, but like, at the end of the day, yes, one of them attacks you while they're awake. While you're awake, one of them attacks you while you're asleep. But being killed by Freddy Krueger is not a million miles away from being killed by Jason. It's just not, right? And there's only so many different ways you can have a boogeyman. It is not that different from being killed by Michael Myers, for example. And these are not monsters necessarily, but I mean, they're not strictly human either. And what I really liked, and then you had just a whole bunch of crappy 80s movies where, like, it's an alien, or it's a sewing machine, or it's a something, and this movie called The Host, not the Stephanie Meyer?
Not the Stephanie Meyer.
Not the Stephanie Meyer
movie.
Follow-up to Twilight. No.
Nope.
This is a truly weird and unusual monster. And so that was the first thing. And the other thing was, we have discussed, and I have given you as an assignment in horror school before, we have discussed horror comedies. And rewatching it for this podcast, I no longer know if I would consider this a horror comedy. I hope we talk about that because I'm honestly on the fence about it. I don't know how I feel.
Right.
But there's no denying that it is intentionally funny at parts and intentionally character driven and intentionally scary. And I think, again, you could have hated this movie, but I don't think you deny that at least sometimes all three of those things work. And to be blunt, the list of movies where all three of those things work even once in the same movie, it's a real short list. I mean, real short. I can think of this movie. I can think of Shaun of the Dead. I can think of American Werewolf in London. I mean, and honestly,
the original Poltergeist.
Yes, and the original Poltergeist. I don't know that I'd go.
If you consider Jaws a horror movie.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah. But I don't. But maybe. But whatever.
I agree with you. I don't think it's a horror movie.
I don't unless I do.
Right. Unless I'm in the mood to. But like you've got, and there are movies I love. Like The Monster Squad is an awesome movie.
It's such a B movie though.
But it's a B movie, and And
So,
the
yeah, like,
characters are not. Yes.
So thoughts. So I have a couple of thoughts. You can't.
Please.
So for those who are watching, my camera's frozen repeatedly during this thing, and so there's no picture of me right now. But so you can't see. You can't. It's. You may not know this, but I have thoughts.
America?
You can't tell by the look on my face.
You just go ahead and you look at me. You look at me.
Okay. Look at Andy. He looks good. I hope it's at least frozen on something interesting. I can't tell.
You've got an amazing Skype face. It's
great.
It's
I'm really excited about technology in the future.
Yep.
People, by the way, should be listening to our show more than watching. The sitting in front of your computer YouTube thing is you could we have audio podcast. It's way better for everybody.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
pop us in, go for a jog.
Or we're a radio show. Okay. So anyways, first of all, Andy, it's a good movie.
I'm glad you liked
So,
it. Or I'm glad you thought it was good.
I liked it. I mean, okay. Bong Joon-ho,
Yes.
okay, the director of this movie, is a filmmaker with a very specific point of view.
Yep.
Who is, I don't know his history at all. I'm basing this on the 2 movies of his I've seen, The Host and Snowpiercer.
Yes.
I think those are the only 2 movies of his I've seen.
Those are the only 2 movies of his I've seen.
Okay, well then there you go. He's got a very particular point of view, at least from those 2 movies.
Which is not that of the everyman.
No, it's a weird off kilter. It's a weird off kilter humor and darkness.
Mm-hmm.
He's clearly got he doesn't like, what is that thing called? America.
It's true. That's true. Give it up for Scott Wilson at the beginning of this movie, just like
seriously, just
playing. I believe his character's name is American Hegemony. I think that's
Johnny. Yeah, it's Johnny America.
That's right.
It seriously would be like if his name was like America or something like that. Like it's. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot to make fun of with The Host, as there was, in my opinion, with Snowpiercer, which we watched earlier last year. But I would say that in both situations, you have a movie with a person with a very particular point of view, a very original, like, he's an interesting filmmaker.
Yeah. Yep.
And he's trying to say something, which is but not in the Michael Moore way.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
I wouldn't call this guy super deep. But really, it's funny you mentioned that, but he's clearly thinking.
Yeah.
And he's trying to say something. It's funny that you name all of these other movies and we don't the most obvious movie that this is clearly connected to Godzilla to me.
Sure.
Very clearly.
Yeah.
Connected to Godzilla.
Complete with the anti-American
and the beast coming out of the water.
Yep.
And the beast is not it's not, I mean, it's definitely eating and killing people or regurgitating them for his underground lair.
To eat later? Oh, I'll just take a doggy bag to go. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
But that being said, it's not, and this is a funny thing to say, it's not like an evil creature. It doesn't feel evil the way, it feels more like, you know what it feels like? It feels like a big, slimy, wild dog.
Interesting. Okay.
Stray animal.
Sure.
It's a stray animal, undomesticated beast.
Yeah.
More than the alien from Alien.
Oh, certainly.
Which exists solely for the purpose of terrifying and destroying you.
Yeah, there are moments in The Host where it's like, whoa, that's okay. That's uncool random river mutant thing, but they're always after it's been provoked and provoked and provoked, and other than that, it's just sort of galloping, harumphing around looking for food. The food just happens to often be us, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right. I think that's right.
So anywho,
I want to talk about something in the Scott Wilson opening.
You're in charge of this conversation, so go for it.
So we're gonna talk about something that I
Scott
totally
Wilson is
forgotten.
Herschel from Walking Dead, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. He also the
Young
older
redneck
viewers.
police officer. Tonight.
Yes, well done. The older among us also might know him as one of the killers in the movie of In Cold Blood.
Oh wow.
Yes, he is a guy that every time you see him, you're like, oh, this scene's gonna be okay because he's in it.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah. So and BT Dubs, I am catching up on The Walking Dead, and it is finally showing the promise that I wanted it to when I was a fan of the comic book. I still am, and they announced the television show. Better than it has ever been.
The last season that they that we're in the middle of, I guess, or just finished?
Yes. In the middle of.
I forget. Are we?
In the middle of. It comes back tomorrow, I believe.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
If I have energy for that. This is the best season of the show so far.
Yes, which is astonishing. That's so weird.
It is astonishing. It's also not to say that it's the best show on TV.
No.
But it is, and not to say that it's not inherent, like exceedingly frustrating on a regular basis. But
sure.
it has improved markedly.
Yes.
And and there's potential.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes. So Scott Wilson, just to explain what Aaron America wants his upstanding Korean assistant to do. They're like doctors or scientists in a lab, and he's like, I want you to pour this formaldehyde into down the drain. And the guy's like, this goes into the Han River. That's bad. And he's like, yes, I want you to dump it into the Han River. There's not a lot of subtlety in this opening.
It was like...
Yeah. And what's funny is, two things struck me about it. One I had noticed before, and I guess the other one I'd noticed because you can't not, but I had totally forgotten about it. He's like, I don't like things that are dirty. And his reason for dumping the formaldehyde, which is clearly a lie, right? You're never given why he wants it dumped, except other than he's American and evil. But
you can just say American. We assume that it means evil.
He wants it dumped because he doesn't like things that are dirty. And then he picks up a formaldehyde bottle and he rubs the outside of it, and there is dust on the outside of the bottle. And he's like, "See, it's dirty formaldehyde." And I was like, "What?" And the first time I watched it, that was my reaction. I was like, did I fall asleep? did I miss something? But no, that's just welcome to the weird, basically. And then, and it's also like, I want you to dump all of this formaldehyde. This is the second thing that I noticed that I had forgotten. I want you to dump all this formaldehyde. And you're seeing like 7 or 8 bottles. And you're like, I mean, it's kind of a jerk move, dude. If you're gonna poison the Han River, just do it yourself. It'll take you 20 seconds. And then there's a shot of the guy doing it, and there are like a zillion bottles. There are like the Han River. It's like that joke. Like I have some I have some blood in my alcohol system. Like it's
right.
Like,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right. It's like the Han River had some water in its formaldehyde there for a minute, and I was just like, there is, and the reason I bring it up, besides the fact that it was sort of a not funny haha, but like a really striking image of just like sweeping slowly down all of these bottles. It really is surprising to me how subtle some of the rest of the movie is. Not that I think that's one of its calling cards. But there's a lot of subtle stuff going on later in the movie, and you would not get that from the opening to this movie.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, so the guy's got interesting visual. He's an interesting visual thinker.
Yeah.
I think that he's got this interesting ability to I don't know how else to say it. Like, I mean, he understands the power of image and how to make that image actually be nuanced. I mean, it's not just... I mean, he understands how to create complexity of feeling and idea in that, so I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's ham-handed in terms of like...
yeah.
Let's think about Snowpiercer. Like, America probably is the reason for that one too.
Yeah,
like,
agreed.
Ignores all the signs, and global warming happens.
Yep.
And then so now like global warming does this, and so now there's just a train that travels. Like it's really broad brush. It's really
true.
like
That's true.
really broad brush to the degree and that it's almost like a fable or a parable.
Well, I mean,
So it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't really matter. All that matters is he's a dirty commie who hates America, and that we're the worst people ever.
Wrong Korea.
But I mean,
wrong Korea.
But within that, also he has very strange feelings about like father-daughter relationships.
It's true. That is true. Yeah.
Him and the other Korean filmmaker that I'm familiar with.
You're gonna have to give me more than that, big guy.
The guy who did Old Boy and Stoker.
Yes. Fair. Yes. That's true.
Is that Park Chan-wook?
Yes.
Yeah, both those guys. I know it's like, oh, they're both Korean filmmakers. They're the exact same person. I mean, I'm come on. I know that's not true.
No.
But they're the two Korean filmmakers that I'm familiar with. And if these two guys are representative of anything going on in Korean culture, if you're a daughter in Korea, get out.
Jesus.
I'm just saying. Or maybe
a slightly less xenophobic way of saying it. Hey, Korean film industry, branch out a little, maybe, please, because
what you just said is, if that makes me sound like a better person than that thing.
Yeah. I'm just.
I'd like to sound like a better person than I am. So that
I'm trying to improve your Q rating in Korea.
Oh, good. Thank you. I mean, that's a market we have not exploited yet.
It's true. It's true. And I have dreams of becoming a professional StarCraft player. So there's that.
I'm a huge fan of Psy.
Sure.
Huge fan. I think he's fantastic.
BT Dubs, not a huge fan of America. So maybe, there's that.
What are you talking about? He went to school in America. Is he really not a fan of America?
Isn't like Gangnam, doesn't Gangnam Style have like a weird, like,
it's all about it. Oh, it's anti-materialism, but it's a materialist. He's talking about a specific neighborhood in South Korea, in Seoul. Gangnam is like the high rent, crazy consumerist place, but he doesn't compare it to America as far as I can tell.
Wouldn't be the first time I got something totally wrong. Anyway, moving on.
But I do appreciate you knowing that his biggest hit is actually a commentary in general on something. It's not just fluff.
It's functionally Dawn of the Dead, but with Korean pop.
It's true.
So, more Land of the Dead, really. Anyway, sorry on so many levels. I'm sorry, Phil. I'm sorry, Second Breakfast Nation. I'm sorry, Psy. So I want to talk before we get into. I want to stick with like the nuts and bolts of the way this movie was made, because I every time I watch it, and I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times now, I am reliably and repeatedly astonished at how good the monster looks. Like,
yes,
it has to be mostly CGI, right? Like, it just has to be.
Yep.
But it looks real. Like, with very, very few exceptions. It's just really well done.
Yes, it does not. It does not look like just a. It does not look like just a It doesn't look like it's like a green screen or whatever else.
Right.
Like it looks. Yeah, it's well done. I'm with you.
All right, that's it. I guess I didn't want to say anything else about the special effects. I just thought they were well done. Let's talk about the family, because that's what this movie is about. This movie is about the family.
It is.
You've got the patriarch who has a soft spot for his kids, even when he maybe shouldn't. The mom, I think like the grandmother died a long time ago, or is not in the picture. He has 3 kids, 3 grown children. They are all screw-ups. All of them.
Oh, yeah.
The oldest is just a total waste of space. He can't be bothered to stay awake running the family's like food stand. Then you have I believe the daughter is the middle child. I'm not sure if that's ever explicitly stated. She is someone who's like an impossibly talented archer, but is so timid that she she can't bring herself to just loose the arrow, like send the arrow towards the target in the time limit she has, so she loses her chance for the gold medal. And then you have, I think, the youngest, who's another son, who is he's a former like revolutionary who's now just a drunk, and that's it. like that's
Yeah, they're a mess.
They are a mess. And the bright spot in the family is the oldest son's daughter, who, and something I noticed this time around,
Which means she doesn't have a chance.
not a chance, like just not a chance. She's not. I mean, until the end of the movie or the middle of the movie, she's not actually anything special either. She's just a normal kid, but that puts her
just
far and away at the top
far above and beyond everyone else. Yeah,
of this family, this messed up, doofus-filled family. And of course, she gets kidnapped, but swallowed, but not killed by the monster. And she rises to the occasion. Like no one else in her family probably would have.
right.
And I guess the story of the movie is the story of them searching for her and being forced to rise to the occasion. I want to talk about... give me your thoughts on the family. Give me your thoughts on the family. I want to talk about, like, all the generations. Like, here's what I loved about this movie. Every relationship is interesting. And every one of those characters, even if as they are sort of arch and not completely realistic, they do their job in the movie. It doesn't feel out of place in the movie. It doesn't feel forced.
Here's what I'll say about, I don't know if I'll get into the family dynamics per se, or character by character, but I would say this. Really, one of the real, if we're thinking about this movie in terms of it being a horror movie, one of the real, what do you call it? One of the real motifs of the horror genre is that's the fancy pants word I was looking for. One of the real motifs of the horror genre is you've got a problem, and you want to see, and basically, you've got a problem that's deadly,
right?
And basically, what we're really seeing is a cross section of people and how they deal with it. One of the things I've come to learn about horror movies is that the horror movie is often so much less about the monster. And I learned this through you and through the zombie thing, that it's not that it's not about the monster.
Right.
But it's that it's primarily about how people respond to the threat.
Yes.
Which ends up creating a space for either political or social commentary or character study. At its worst, it ends up just being grist for the mill. It ends up just being a splatterfest. So it's these slasher picks and the gore fest. It's just how much nonsense can we throw at the screen, and how many different people can we kill in the most grisly fashion.
Right.
But really, when you watch a horror movie, because a horror movie, if we're gonna be highfalutin about horror. If we're gonna be I can't do one episode without doing that. It's so depressing. If we're gonna be highfalutin and serious about horror,
you say depressing, I say awesome. Go ahead.
Thank you, appreciate that. Then you have to, like, if we're going to do that about these horror movies, and what we have to do is we have to look at them and go, what does a horror movie, what's the point? Like, what is the catharsis? What is the goal? And the goal of a horror movie is, in my mind, that more and more is to highlight the grotesque in our society, in our hearts, in our fears, in the world, in our culture, whatever it may be. It's to highlight and to visually sort of attack and illustrate the grotesqueness of our life and our pathos. Okay, so if that's true, then a good horror movie has to either make a good point about culture or has to have really interesting characters. That's what it has to have. Now, that should be true about every movie, but a horror movie, for it to be good, it also needs to have a good monster and convincing deaths, and it needs to be legitimately scary.
Yes.
To some degree, this movie felt less like a horror movie than a monster movie, if that's a difference. If I can make that. If Godzilla's a horror movie, I don't know. And I would say that... but I would say this. Every character felt like a real character. Every character felt like a real person. And their deaths, when they die, or whoever dies...
people die.
No, sure, but like... the monster happens to these people, and they react the way these people, as constructed, who are real people, would.
Yeah.
And they're consistent in their both attraction to and repulsion from each other, which is a hallmark of family relationships.
Sure.
So it works in that sense for me.
Yeah.
It becomes a study of a family, and I hadn't thought about it, but let's push it a little further. It becomes a study of a family that is a failure, and yet holds on to each other.
Yeah.
And let's go a little further. Now, let's say this is a movie that is a critique about America, mainly because I think it is.
Right,
but you only see that at the beginning. You
Right.
only see that at the beginning.
Right.
At least explicitly. America's just the bad guy in general. We're just terrible and awful.
I mean, there's that doctor about halfway through. The weird cross-eyed guy.
Oh, sure. I forgot about that. Okay.
Whose name is Doctor, in case you forgot that America's the bad guy here, here's this doctor.
Yeah, I think that is his name. I think you're right. It's a long name, I grant you,
right.
but they were very comfortable with it.
Tough to put that on his coat.
Listen, what do you want to call it something else? Like, he is who he is. So anyways, but then what this movie's about, I'm guessing. You tell me what you think. Here's my guess. That this is a movie that's about Korean apathy towards being hegemonized. That on a cultural level, the Korean culture is being co-opted and overtaken by American values and ways and resources and evils and the people are dead to it. Are not awake to the reality of that. And that this sort of apathy, not only, and the way we see this as apathy is, they literally don't see a monster growing up and developing right in front of them. And then when they see that it's there, they, unlike Godzilla, when the monster first shows up, Andy, they're not even scared at first.
Right.
Like, they're not even terrified. They're like, let's
throw a beer at it.
Throw
Give
stuff
it a beer.
at it.
Give it a beer.
Let's throw things at it.
Yeah.
Let's litter more in the water. So they've become America. Again, I'm guessing. Sure. By the way, now might be a good time for me to say I do not endorse the politics of this movie, but that's fine. That's because I want to describe what I think is happening. So This interesting idea is that, like, the horror of the realization of this monster that they've created by the help and through the influence of their American people or American culture is it comes upon them as they are euthanized, or not euthanized, that's wrong, anesthetized. They are anesthetized to the reality of this, and very different. That's why I apologize.
It's all good. You're good.
Anesthetized to the reality of what's happening, and when they wake up, it binds them together and helps them realize there is something worth fighting for, and it comes not without a cost, but it comes with it forces them to re-understand themselves as family and to reorient their lives around that. That's what I see happening now. Because most people live, it's not really a horror movie. But in terms of like what you were talking about, I mean, in terms of like the idea of horror, it uses the horror tropes big time. That's my 10-cent philosophy on that movie. You're welcome to. It's your turn.
I would. Here is where I would say something along the lines of, Phil, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Except that I think I agree with you. I don't, I don't know
I would
that
say,
I would.
how about if their movie, if Bong Joon-ho's, if Bong Joon-ho had made The Host and then made something other than Snowpiercer, we
Right.
might be able to say a cigar is just a cigar.
Right, right.
But it's very clear with this man that a cigar is many, many things.
right. Chiefly a
No,
body
yeah.
part of America that is inserting itself into other places around the world. Yes.
Right, right.
I,
Right.
to be, shall we say, indelicate about it. It's interesting. One wonders what the. I don't want to. I know we sort of bandy about how deep into spoilers do we get. I don't know that I want to spoil the very very end of this movie, but
Oh, okay.
like I wonder. Is he just being? Screw it. Here we go. So
Yeah, we're just talking about the movie.
yeah. So the fact that the daughter, the granddaughter, the shining hope of this family, dies,
Yeah.
which shocked the hell out of me when I was like, did I fall asleep? Did I miss where she woke up? And then it's just that other kid, that weird other street urchin, formed live action out of Grave of the Fireflies and moved from Japan to Korea, and there we go. He Bong Joon-ho, I wonder if he's saying, is it too late? Yes, you've got this other kid, but again, these two kids are nothing special, right? This is not she's a
No, I don't think he's saying. I don't know if he's saying it's too late or not.
Right.
But I know. But I don't know if it's too late. But it's not. No. So he could. I don't know. I don't know this guy at all. Right.
Right. Well, you do.
I
You've
don't
seen
know
two of
that
his
he's saying
movies.
it's. Yeah, you're right. So I would say this. By virtue of the way the movie ends, with a new family cobbled together, and him now acting like an actual dad,
Right.
and them actually kind of paying attention to the news, but also but it being in it's a part of their life, but it's also not the centerpiece of their life.
Right.
That there is hope, I think he's saying, but not without a cost.
Sure.
And this is very Christian, by the way. Or not that I would suggest remotely that the man is a Christian or that that's the point. And I've done that before with Interstellar, and I don't want to be the guy who paints everything with a Christian brush. I will say there are echoes of something that Jesus teaches, which is Jesus basically teaches you got to die to live. Straight up. A lot of people think that the whole Christian thing is you've got to believe certain things so that when you die you get to go to heaven. That's not actually first of all, that's just a load of crap, and I'll fight anyone on that any day long. But Jesus says, what is it worth to gain the whole world and lose your soul?
Right.
And those who who want to live have to be willing to forfeit their life to understand real life. And he says a seed, and he uses, this is bad science, but Jesus is the first Christian, so he can have bad science. Okay, he says it's more for the imagery. He says a seed does not sprout until it goes into the ground and dies. Now we all know a seed doesn't die when it goes in the ground, but
Sure.
the idea is obvious, right?
Yes.
That you bury that thing down there, and it's seemingly not actually doing anything, and it's not alive, and yet from that grows life. And so this is resurrection stuff. This is but the idea that's important about resurrection, the idea that's important about it for what we're talking about now is, this is not self-improvement. And this is not, if we wake up, we can fix everything. The daughter dies, and many people die.
And there's no fixing that.
Because our actions have consequences.
Yes. Right.
Period.
Right.
Can we come together in the wake of that reality or in the aftermath of that reality?
Right.
And and this is the important part, can that tragic reality bring us into a new life and a new understanding? That's some resurrection thinking there. That's what I'm trying to connect to the Jesus teaching thing. And that's where I'll stop there. I'm not going to go any further than that. But it's just this idea. It helps me sort of unlock this idea that I see Bong Joon-ho as trying to put forward as Freedom's possible, people, or in Snowpiercer, I think it's freedom.
Right.
Life is possible, but you're gonna need to wake up. You're gonna need to fight. You're gonna need to get rid of America, of course, and it's all going to come at a cost.
Right.
So I think that's what I see him sort of doing. This is a very different movie than American Sniper.
I'm going to push back on that because the first thing I thought of when I saw American Sniper was, man, this reminds me of Bong Joon-ho's The Host.
I can't wait till we talk about American Sniper, but that's a whole other subject.
It is. So here's a question.
Okay.
I guess there just aren't that many characters in this movie. I was going to say, like, you said, like, not that many people die, right? But, like, there are 5 people in the family. 2 of them die. In another family, one of the 2 people dies. And I mean, you know...
I guess I just mean, like, when Godzilla swings his tail, 2,000 people die.
That's true.
That's all I really mean.
That's
I guess
true. But okay. I'm gonna take your anti-American metaphor, which I think is completely valid and apt and on point. But it's a different anti-American metaphor, right? I mean, Godzilla is you are messing with things beyond your control, and that has consequences. And you're not around, and like you're not around, like you're dealing, like, you dropped the bomb and you left, and we're still picking up the pieces, right?
Sure.
The Host is this sort of, like, new anti-American thread, and this is not a political statement. I'm merely echoing the metaphor.
Sure.
Like,
yep.
Like, you're not the guy who's dropping the bomb on Hiroshima anymore. You're the guy who's making money because he's pouring formaldehyde into the Han River, and nobody knows about it. Right? You can't have a 3,000-foot tall lizard be that metaphor. You've got to have the weird river creature who, like, you don't see because you're looking at the water, but he's hanging beneath the bridge above you, right? So I don't know that I agree with you. Like, it's not like Godzilla because, or it's not a horror movie because Godzilla swings his tail and 2,000 people die, and this one, it's a much more personal thing. I think that's the point. On a metaphorical level, that's the point. Freddy Krueger doesn't swing his razor fist and kill 80 million people. Right?
Yeah.
It like, his point is to be up close and personal, right? Like, Michael Myers came back to get the family, you know?
I think for some reason, the thing that scares us about Michael Myers and the thing that scares us about... okay, Friday the 13th is scary because... Friday the 13th is scary. That's not Michael Myers, I know. But Friday the 13th is scary because for the same reason Evil Dead is scary, for the same reason that Cabin in the Woods is scary, is it doesn't feel like you have any way out. There's those movies that set up a haunted house situation, or Alien. Like, You're not getting off the ship in Alien, right? You're on the ship.
It's true.
That's that. Okay.
I mean, not for nothing until she gets off the ship. But your point is well taken.
But I mean, it feels okay. But that's scarier too. It's like from bad to worse, right? It's like out of the frying pan into the fire. Whereas, like, I feel like if you're scared of this creature in The Host, just drive 10 minutes away. That's my point.
Sure.
It feels incredibly, and I mean, if Freddy has decided to come for you, fly to France. When you fall asleep, he'll kill you. Like, that's true. That's the thing. I'm like, there is one of the things that I get out of horror movies, and this is where I could be wrong. So that's, I mean, this is why you're teaching me, Andy, is that there is this real dread of the inevitability of the victory of the creature. Right. There is a real dread that this means the end of civilization as we know it.
Right.
Or at least of the lie. Like, there's this, I guess, I mean, Jason doesn't make me feel that way necessarily, but there's something so And then, I guess so if we draw this closer to something like Michael Myers, which is so incredibly personal.
Right.
But because Michael Myers, in the first one, I haven't seen any of the Halloween movies except for the first one, but it sets itself up into the lives of the people to whom we are introduced, it feels as if they cannot escape.
Sure.
Whereas, obviously, they create a situation where it becomes more of a mission movie because they're off to rescue the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, they're not trying to escape. This is another thing I think. When I think of monster movies, I think about people trying to get away from the monster. But so much of this movie is about battling. Like, when I think of a horror movie, I should say, I think of people trying to get away from and can't escape. Whereas this is a movie where there's a creature that from almost the very beginning, I mean, the very first scene where he attacks, our protagonist decides to try to fight back. So from the beginning, his overriding sense is actually not fear, which is interesting. Like it's first it's boredom, and then it's alarm, but then it quickly becomes like, I'll fight this thing with a street sign.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You've given me a lot to chew on. First off, I'm going to agree and disagree, and I want you to remind me about the street sign thing, because that's really interesting, but I want to talk about that sort of separately. I agree with you. First off, I agree with you that this is not, when I included this in horror school, it is not because I think this is a pure horror film. This is not, it's just right? I will disagree. I think you have, and this comes from the fact that I've just seen more horror movies than you have. I feel like through your experience and honestly through my picking movies for you, we may have cherry-picked the inevitability thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is not to say that horror movies can't have that, and that many or even most don't. But I mean, the alien feels inevitable. Freddy Krueger feels inevitable. Jason and Michael Myers feel inevitable. But Dracula,
yeah. Okay, so then but here, I guess what I'm going to say is, I don't feel like Bong Joon-ho is trying to scare us in this movie on a cultural, like I think he's trying to scare us intellectually rather than scare us viscerally.
I disagree with that. I strongly disagree with that. Not because I don't think, because I think he's purely for this reason. I think he is trying to do both. There is not that he's not trying to scare us intellectually. I think, and I won't even disagree with that, the fact that that's his primary goal. But I mean, like, just because the scale is tipped the other way from Romero, for example, doesn't mean that they're not both trying to scare you on both levels.
Fair enough. I have a question. Oh, so go ahead. Go ahead.
Just real quick. Hold on to that question though, because it's funny that you bring up the dad going after him with the street sign, because what I loved about that was, what are you doing, dude? Oh gosh, you watch an American horror movie and some hot young teenager goes down into the basement, right? And you're like, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
You're gonna die. And that is this, and that was this ne'er-do-well's version of that. It's like, no, I can totally handle this. This is fine. Yeah. What? Yeah. So I thought that was a really interesting way to sort of, without this, so pretentious. Like, it really turned it on its head, but not in like a look at what I'm doing, because it feels organic. It feels like what this guy would do. What would he do? Of course he would think he could handle it, right? What would he do? Of course he would give his shotgun to his father, the grandfather, and forget that he fired all of the bullets. So he's given him nothing.
So I have two responses to that. I have a content response, and then I have a context response. Okay, so my context response is this. Andy, stop saying pretentious. We're not pretentious. We're artsy-fartsy. And there is a difference.
Fair.
I don't think we have any pretense, you and I, about like being better than we are.
That's fair.
I just think we're really artsy fartsy, and the whole point of our podcast is to overthink things. But I also think, like, I was thinking about this because we are going to talk about American Sniper in a future episode, and what I'm really interested in is what I've been interested in from the very beginning in doing this podcast with you, which is getting past the point where we talk about whether or not we like something.
Sure.
Reviews are all about whether or not a movie was good or they liked it, and I almost like everything I want to say about American Sniper has very little to do with whether or not I liked it.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
And here's another thing I think. So have you seen the movie? And then I'll get to the content in a second. Have you seen the movie Chef?
Not yet.
Okay, you will, and you'll love it. It's beautiful.
I'm sure I will.
But there's a
I know I
early
will,
on in
and
the
I'm sure I
movie,
will.
and it's not that big of a deal. But early on in the movie, well, it is a big deal for the movie. But I won't spoil anything except to say that a food critic critiques the chef, and the chef basically gets his feelings hurt, and at one
Right.
point actually expresses, and I won't say how or in what situation, but expresses, this hurts my feelings because I work really hard at this, and this is what I do, and like I care.
Right.
And then to have someone just say meh or thumbs up, thumbs down is deeply personal.
Right.
And so what I want to say is, like, when you and I talk about this stuff, like, Bong Joon-ho spent a long time making this movie.
Yep.
So I think it deserves conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, let's say we have 12 people or 100 people or 1 million people who listen to our show.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the number may be, I think it's like, if you and I are going to talk about it, we're going to talk about the stuff. We're going to talk about subtext, and we're going to talk about, like,
It's true.
we're going to be artsy-fartsy.
It's true.
If people, like, otherwise, why would people listen to an hour-long podcast about a Korean horror movie from 10 years ago? I mean, like, let's just be clear about
fair.
how ridiculous we are as people.
It's a fair point.
So now here's the deal. Now that being said, so now I just use all of that as pretense to be really pretentious, because I want to say, like, who was he thinking he could do that? Well, I think that's like when you've let yourself atrophy, personally, emotionally, culturally. Yeah, then when you see something and it's time to fight, you fight lamely.
That's right.
Like you strike out dumbly because you don't
Yes.
know how else to do it.
Yes.
So you have the lame, useless son. You have the super intelligent and hyper capable, but totally unable to pull the trigger, literally, daughter. Right? Which is a beautiful symbol. So you have one which is a symbol of the waning ability for men to assert themselves or men to care about what's happening to them in their culture.
Yep.
Then you have the picture of the woman who's, and this could very easily be critique of South Korean culture. I'm not South Korean, but what we all hear as Westerners, white Westerners, about Korean culture in terms of subservience of the female, which is really just almost every culture in the history of the world, but that's fine.
Their escape, where she like doesn't get into the van because she's just like she isn't running because she's just like too scared to approach the van.
Right.
I loved that moment because I was like, of course she's like hiding between a couple of cars right now. Of course she is.
And that's Bong Joon-ho saying, if this movie is a wake-up call, then that's him saying, woman, as the movie, thou art loosed. Like, woman, you have the ability, the capacity, and the talent. And the thing that you're missing is that you think that you're not, that you must behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's created a hesitancy in you that is not allowing you to take care of business.
Right.
So there's that, and then there's just like you said, the drunken ex-revolutionary. That's cynicism. That's just like, so apathy, cynicism, and what do you call her? I mean, what do you call that? Apathy is him. Cynicism's the other guy, and then
timidity. I mean, she's
timidity. Yes, that's exactly it. Hesitance and timidity is, and these are the things that our culture is. He's saying our culture is ingrained in. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? And you've allowed this country, this culture, to overwhelm you. So I guess here's my next question, if it's not already obvious. Why is this movie called The Host, Andy?
Well, in Korea, it wasn't. It was called, like, Monster.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's this weird... you know, and I actually, as I was watching, I was like, I should think into this, and then I just totally didn't. There's this weird, where America comes back as the bad guy, there's this weird, like, virus component, which is clearly I don't want to say red herring, it's like introduced and then dropped, but not in a way that, like, he's clearly trying to say something, and I don't know what that something is.
So I think what he might be trying to say, we know, again, and I'm not sure if I'm lopping all. I want to be very careful. I recognize I'm a white American dude who doesn't.
You are.
I'm not like, yeah, but I'm like, so I want to not be xenophobic when I try to talk about, like, but my perception, right? I mean, like,
yeah. Sure,
like people wearing masks in public. To like the germophobia that exists in some of these cultures,
yes,
and the fear that that's what's going to do it. So when this thing happens, and they're like, "There's a virus, like it must be viral, it must be a sickness," and he's like, "Are you?" It might be him being like, "No, like the sickness is that you think like that, like the sickness. The sickness is that you're actually worried about a flu." When your culture is being sublimated to this thing.
The only pushback I'll give you on that is, like, it's the American that introduces that. I feel like the metaphor would work better if it were a Korean who was like, this is a virus.
Maybe that's how bad America is. We just, like, we supply the problem, Andy, and then we supply the red herring, that the distraction.
Right.
I mean, America's really evil. I don't really think that. I know the NSA is listening. It's at least one of our viewers.
Hi, boys.
I love or girls. It's America. It's possible. I love America. True. It's my favorite country. It's where I keep all my stuff.
Sure.
I will never live in another country. I love it. I'm so happy. Just for the record. But I'm not Bong Joon-ho, who apparently.
Likes America less than you do.
Yeah, but we'll take our money. We'll take our money.
Well, sure. Then he can spend it in his country.
True.
Right? That's not an argument. Yeah, no, that's yeah, yes, I'm...
So why is it called Host? So why is it called The Host?
Because, well...
Because the creature's not parasitic.
That's right.
Not like Alien. Again, not back to Alien. It's not parasitic.
Right. I don't think it should be. I think that's an error on the part of the American release. I
wonder how much say Bong Joon-ho had in the naming, because I mean, like, it's not, because it just seems like such a non sequitur. Right.
I mean, we could torture out some metaphor how it's it is the parasite to the society, but I don't really feel like doing that.
Let's not.
let's not also say we didn't.
I don't know that I have anything else to say about this movie.
No.
Right.
I don't know that I do either. I think it's a good time. I think a surprising amount of stuff happens in it. Like, it's not a long movie. It's right at 2 hours, but, like, this family goes through some stuff.
I think when you think about indie movies, and sometimes when you think about foreign movies, you think about, like, long drawn out, like, we get into, like, French New Wave or something. You get into, like, you think about these long drawn out sequences or something.
Right.
This is not that even a little bit.
No.
This is like boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
We've got stuff to do here, people.
That's right. And it's mostly watch a creature gallop through crowds of people.
Which I will say has been true about, which was also true about Snowpiercer. Yep. And Park Chan-wook was obviously true about Oldboy as well.
Yes.
Like, they're making some really messed up, convoluted stuff, and I don't even mean that. I mean neither of those words in the pejorative, actually.
Right. No, I'm with you. I get it. All right. I think we can be done.
What's my next assignment, Andy Roth?
Well, so I'm gonna give you at least a little bit of a choice here.
Option B.
Yeah. So okay. So we've got. Let's see. I was thinking. You and I were talking before we started recording. I was thinking of Suspiria, which a lot of people like more than I did. I will watch it again for you because I love you.
Okay.
It's a horror subgenre called giallo. Giallo.
How's it spelled?
Giallo.
Giallo. Okay.
Giallo. It's very subtextual. There's a lot of like psychosexual stuff in it, and just a whole lot of blood, punctuating the whole thing. There's a movie called Suspiria, which is Dario Argento. It's arguably his best known movie.
Okay.
That's door number one. Door number two, not his best movie because it's just not. But George Romero has a movie called Martin. It is about a young man who thinks he's a vampire. And so I don't want to say anything else in case you choose it.
Okay.
It is a weird movie. It is weird. I'm going to give you a third choice. And this is far and away the most mainstream. All right?
Okay.
The Exorcist, which you say you have seen, but it has been more than half your life.
Saw it when I was 14, so I've seen it. It was 21 years ago. Yep. Oh my gosh, I'm so old. Okay.
Duh, we're ancient. We'll have to postpone the next horror school because I just broke my hip.
All right, I will think about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You don't have to tell me now. You don't have to tell Second Breakfast Nation now.
They don't get to know right now.
They don't get to know right now. That's right.
All right, America.
Yeah, but
10 points beyond.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Good talking today.
Yeah. Right. So
next
folks,
episode we're going to do American Sniper, and then we've got a special. We got so much in store.
Yes, it's very exciting. Very exciting. Coming up on Oscar season, we're probably going to do a top 10.
Yep, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. We're getting close.
Did I see 10 movies this year? I'm not sure I did.
That's question.
So yeah, but it's all.
I'm going to do the top 10
America.
movies of 2015 so far.
Great.
All right.
Great. All right, folks, that'll bring us to the end of another Second Preface podcast, another horror school. For Phil Duvall, I am Andy Roth, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.